This conference will now be recorded.
Even though you don't personally represent them?
Well, you're unmuted now.
Now we're unmuted. If you want to say hello.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Maybe I need to drive there now.
Glad he's here.
Because of the camera.
Good morning, how are you? How was your stay last night?
Nice.
Your toe was really nice,
I've heard all good things.
super convenient.
Just there for Legacy Cities meeting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the day.
They did. I was pushing around.
Okay.
The appointment office.
You need to put a sign in too, because they're one day. The senior director has.
I think that is just the process way of
But then I
saying
can't serve.
You can serve until you're, that's expired. Unless you're removed by the governor or not reappointed.
But I don't
The
get,
chair is
I'm-
on, just
You can
FYI.
get.
no, here because I guess I was on the executive committee. And it was mentioned that maybe I shouldn't because I'm not official.
Because none of the governments,
Right,
all of them expired. Every single one.
right. So,
Governor needs
So-
to reappoint you.
Well, we need to fill out an application and ask again. I mean, honestly, probably the best way is checking behind the scenes.
yeah.
There's our chair.
I love the fact that there's that picture there. It's hysterical.
I took a picture of it, sent it to him.
I apologize. I am up in Tallahassee for the last 2 weeks of session now, where they are just raping, pillaging, and plundering. I just find it consistently astonishing how they, the legislature, which I was a part of for 20 years, is now telling the federal government, yes, don't pass nationwide laws because what works in New York doesn't work in North Dakota. But when we tell them, great, we agree, local government, so please don't pass laws that apply to Bradford County with a population of 27,000. They don't work in Broward County with a population of 2 million. And they advise us that, well, the federal government is too big and the local governments are too small. But just like Goldilocks, state
Just
just
right.
right and has all knowledge. And I was a legislator for 20 years. I promised you that the legislature, which I still love and still consider myself a senator, really doesn't know everything. So I think we're about a minute or two from starting. I'll give us another couple of minutes to probably start around 10:32 or 10:33 to give an opportunity for other
Yeah,
members.
like for these people on.
I know, I see that. Oh, I
I'm
see
sorry?
what's Dr. G's on.
That, I noticed that Michelle, excuse me, Councilmember Coldiron brought all her Keys fans along. See, the president of the Keys
Yes.
College.
Dr. Guerva, and
Yeah,
Commissioner Cates is there.
yeah,
Good.
nice.
I'm going to be chairing a meeting. Put my jacket on so I look appropriately formal.
Just heard a door.
Here comes Beam,
Good one.
just in the nick of time.
Running around.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
Hello.
All of y'all have so many meetings. My goodness. A meeting.
Did you say Commissioner Furr was on? I don't see him.
Hi.
Just walked in the door in person.
Hi.
Okay, you're right. I can only see the people that are attending virtually.
No, but, no, he's here.
The conference
Have you said you can only see the ones virtually?
No, but you should be able to see our conference
Oh,
room.
no, I see the picture, but bear in mind, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see about 10 or 11 people that are that big on my screen. They're one view out of 6, 12, 18. I have 24 boxes on my screen, and the 11 or 12 of you are condensed into one of those 24 boxes.
All right.
So 10:32, why don't we start in about 1 minute?
Oh, this is the best turnout we've had in a long time in person. It's very exciting.
Yes, maybe I should, in the future, get us a larger.
Yes.
I can no longer see anybody because I've referred back to my agenda. All right, we're going to start at when my clock indicates 10:33. Good gavel. The hour of 10:33 having arrived.
The agenda screen?
I'm sorry.
We're good, Senator.
Okay, I will ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and which I will ask Commissioner Furr to lead.
Follows you. It does. Look at it. Cool.
You lead it.
Okay, I started. Well, I pledge allegiance to
One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Oh, yeah, it does. It is a quick.
I would first like to ask someone to call the roll and announce the presence of a quorum.
Bailey?
Present.
Cates? Here. Coldiron?
Present.
Corradino?
Here.
Fur? Garcia,
Present.
Gilbert, Goldberg,
Here?
Hoffman,
Here.
Leonard,
Here.
McGee, Ross,
Here.
Udine, Ziotti,
Here. No, he's here.
Andriotta,
Mayor
Udine is
Udine is here.
Udine is here.
Andriotta here.
Thank you.
What a great turnout.
Nguyen,
Here.
Mayers,
Here.
Geller.
Here.
Mr. Chair, this is your lawyer. On the record, you do meet the requirements of Chapter 120 in the context of having a physical quorum under the statute of a third of your membership under 120.525, which was your local bill that became a statewide bill, and you have a quorum this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, SFRPC attorney. By the way, Sam, are you there in person?
I am. I am here in person
You.
and
Okay.
grateful to be here. Thank you.
And by the way, just quick announcement, I took Mayor Udine trap shooting over the weekend for the first time. He really enjoyed it. Anybody's interested in going in the future, let me know.
And for the record.
I'm not getting near either one.
Sorry?
For the
Somebody
record,
said-
Senator Geller is an awesome trap shooter. He got 11 out of 15 targets. He was like a pro out there. They don't call him Senator Bubba Geller for nothing.
When I'm in practice, I'm a lot better than that. Okay, at this point in time, I would like a motion to approve the council agenda.
So moved, Greg Ross.
Moved by Mayor Ross, seconded by, who seconded that?
Goldberg.
Seconded by Mayor Goldberg, or Commissioner, I'm sorry. Seconded by Councilor Goldberg.
Condolences.
Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Is there any objection? If not, show the council agenda approved without objection. We have council planning conversation at a time certain at 11:15. I urge all members to make sure that you're still here at that. I think this will be a enlightening and very important conversation for this organization to have. So we are temporarily passing that till the time certain of 11:15 and are now moving to Roman numeral 4 action items. Everyone has been provided with a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
So moved, Greg Ross.
Moved by Mayor Ross,
Sorry.
seconded by Commissioner Furr. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Show the minutes adopted unanimously. We will now hear our financial report.
Yeah, reported.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you for having me. So we go to page 1 of our financial report. We will see under the general fund and the balance sheet that the total for the assets is $1,750,434, same as total liabilities and fund balance. In the federal, state, and local fund, we have $39,150, same as total liabilities and fund balance. The revolving loan funds are at $11,973,332, same as the total liabilities on fund balance where it says division by 0. In the SFRPI, we have $41,251, same as total liabilities on fund balance. We go to page 2, at the bottom of the page, it says that the percentage of the fiscal year lapse is at 33%. The total revenues are at 37% at the end of January. the total expenses are 22% and the pass-through expenses are 28%. I want to clarify that the bottom line where it says our Left CARES Act funding disbursed, we finished disbursing the completeness of our funds disbursed by the federal government at $5.3 million in the past month of January. That's it. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Do we need a motion to, Isabel, do we approve the financial report?
Yes, please.
Is there
Motion
a
to
motion
approve, Mayor Ziotti.
Second, Greg
Mayor
Ross.
Ziotti moves approval. And who seconded?
Greg Ross.
All right, is there any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify of approving the financial report. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so the financial report approved unanimously. We now move on to our consent agenda. And I will ask Attorney Gorin to please read the proposed consent comprehensive plan amendment reviews.
Thank you, Senator Chair Geller. Just for the record, I've conferred with Mayor Corradino. He has an on-the-record conflict with regard to, or potential conflict with regard to several of the proposed and one of the adopted. And if you will, I will extract them from the mix for your benefit so they can be taken up separately.
Thank you.
That would be in the proposed with the town of Cutler Bay, the city of Key West, and the city of Oakland Park in the proposed column. And in the adopted column would be the city of Doral. Mayor Corradino's firm does some work for those cities, although he is not directly involved under section 112.3143, which is the voting conflict section in chapter 112. He's made the decision to recuse from voting on those specifically and to file the Form 8 voting conflict within 15 days of today's discussion. But Mr. Chair, if you will, they should be taken out of the mix for his approval so he can be taken up separately. And Mayor Corradino has confirmed on the record that he is an appearance of a conflict and would choose not to be in conflict.
Okay, what I would propose then is that we first do the proposed ones that do not require a public hearing. And we will do the first ones that do not have a conflict for Mayor Corradino. And we will then do all of the ones that would have a conflict or a potential appearance of conflict from which Mayor Corradino will abstain. Does that work?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Please take up proposed ones that do not require the public hearing that Mayor Corradino can vote on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first of which is in the proposed column is Broward County 22-01 ESR, the City of Coral Gables 22-01 ESR, the City of Dania Beach 22-02 ESR, and that would end the proposed column where there is no conflict. These require a public hearing. To the extent that there are any, in the absence of a public hearing, they can be approved. And the next step, Mr. Chair, would be the adopted.
Which is what I was about to do. Before I do that, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, I believe I've heard Mayor Ross move adoption of the consent agenda as read by Attorney Gorin. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor Ziotti.
Seconded by Mayor Ziotti. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate. All those in favor of the proposed consent agenda, please vote aye. And remember, Mayor, you can vote on this one. Okay, please show aye. Opposed? Please show that adopted unanimously. Now, please read the proposed ones where there is the potential appearance of a conflict.
Thank you, Senator Chair Geller. The first of which is the town of Cutler Bay. That's 22-01 ESR. The next would be the City of Key West, 21-03 ACSC. The next, the City of Key West, 22-01 ACSC. And last but not least, the City of Oakland Park, 22-01 ESR. And the record will reflect a recusal and abstention from Mayor Corradino. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Are there any questions on any of these? If not, I will ask for a motion for approval.
Motion made, Greg Ross.
Okay, Mayor Coldiron moves approval. Mayor Ross seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Those are Mayor Corradino only, Mr. Chair.
Please show that Mayor Corradino, please show that this motion is passed unanimously with one abstention, the abstention being Mayor Corradino.
M.
We will
Bailey
now move- I'm
abstaining.
sorry?
M. Bailey abstaining. I failed to mention the Cutler Bay item, so I'm abstaining from abstaining items to make it simple.
Okay. Does that work, Attorney Gorin?
If the chair will accept former Chair Bailey's abstention on the Cutler Bay item, then the answer is that if you accept it with that change, we'll file the appropriate form or have him file the appropriate Form 8 as well.
Great. All right, please show that done without objection. Any objection? Show that done without objection. We will now move to the public hearing, and we will follow the same process where we will first do the ones that there is no conflict on, and we will then follow that up with a separate vote on ones that there is a conflict. So Attorney Gorin, if you can open the public, well, I guess I open the public hearing, and let me begin by asking, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on any of these items, which are Broward County 21-05 ESR, Broward County 2106 ESR, Town of Davie 2101 ESR, City of Doral 2103 ESR, City of Florida City 21-01 ESR, City of Marathon 2107 ACSC, and Village of Miami Shores 21-01 ESR. The public hearing is open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on any of those items? Seeing no member of the public wishing to speak on any of those items. Sam, can you please tell us first which ones we'll be voting on where there is conflict?
Yes, if I can, Mr. Chair, Senator Geller, the item that will be the conflict for Mayor Corradino is the City of Doral 21-03 ESR, which has been extracted from the mix of those which can be adopted by the full council without the vote of Mayor Corradino. Doral only.
Okay. Are there any other abstentions necessary? Any other abstentions necessary? If not, I will ask for motion to approve the adopted public hearing item with the exception of the one that Attorney Gorin mentioned that will be voted on separately because of a conflict.
So moved by Garcia.
Greg Ross,
Garcia moves approval, seconded by, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Greg Ross.
Seconded by Mayor Ross. Is there any debate? Seeing no debate. All of those in favor of adopting the public hearing as read by Sam Gorin, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show this adopted unanimously. Now, Attorney Gorin, if you can please read the, I think you said it was only one item that Mayor Corradino would be abstaining from.
Thank you, Senator Jerry Geller. For the record, the only item which there may be an appearance of a potential conflict under the statute by Mayor Corradino from Pinecrest is the City of Doral 21-03 ESR.
Okay. Is there any debate on that item? Is there any debate? If there is no debate, I will ask for motion for approval.
So moved. Greg Ross.
Approval by Greg Ross, seconded by Renee
Coldiron.
Garcia. Okay, Mayor Coldiron. All those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please show that adopted unanimously with Mayor Corradino abstaining.
And for the record, Mr. Chair, he will file the appropriate Form 8 required by the State Election Ethics Commission timely under the statute on that particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. We now will move into regional issues, comprehensive plan amendment review, of which there is none. Ms. Cosio, if you can, or Mr. Gorin, whichever of you, if you can discuss the request for authorization to enter into the South Florida MIRR consultant contracts, and has there been any update on this since we spoke collectively on this at the end of last week?
Yes. So Isabel Cosio Carballo, speaking on the South Florida MIRR consultant contract. As you know, we've been working with the top ranked consultant firm to reach agreement on a scope of work. We've been going back and forth now for a couple of weeks, and we're, I think, very close. We were hoping to bring the contract to this meeting. Our staff recommends that additional detail be put in the scope of work, and clearly I respect staff's assessment on that. So I'm hopeful that we will get that done this week. Additionally, the indemnification issue has been resolved. They accepted our original contract language, and that's it. So we don't want to wait a whole other month to go forward on these contracts. It's very time sensitive. And so we're requesting the permission of working with legal counsel, Sam Goring, to go ahead and proceed with the contract if we reach agreement on the scope of work.
You need a motion to that?
Yes, Mr.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Mr. Farrar, I believe.
Discussion.
Okay, Mayor Ross, you're recognized, sir. Well, first, before you do that, let me see if there's a second for the motion.
Second. Goldberg, second.
By Goldberg, not Mayor Goldberg, though. Okay, at this point in time, let me call and recognize Mayor Ross.
I have difficulty in giving the permission or authorization to enter into the contract without first seeing the entire contract. I understand what the issues are and they've been listed and resolved, but until I read the actual contract, I have problems in doing so.
Okay. Isabel, would you have any problem with our, I know we're in a hurry, but what I would suggest is once we have the contract finalized, that we email it to the officers. Mayor Ross, are you still an officer?
It's a good question. Isabel, am I?
You are forever an officer.
All right, in that case, I would recommend that we email it to the officers with a 48-hour turnaround requirement. If you do not respond within 48 hours of the time that Isabel sends it out, your assent will be assumed. And again, I personally no longer read contracts because there's simply too many of them. And so I sign whatever the attorney signs. I sign no documents. I sign no documents as mayor of Broward, nor will I as chair of the SFRPC that have not first been approved by our legal counsel. Once they have been approved, you know, I'm trusting their judgment. So, but it will be signed by me or approved by me, although that will be pro forma once it's been approved by Mr. Gorin and Ms. Cosio. So would that satisfy your concerns, Mayor Ross?
It would, and it's a fair turnaround.
Okay. May I ask the maker of the motion if he would accept that as a friendly amendment?
I would, and if I could add to that, if there is a concern that merits all of our attention, in case Greg catches something that nobody else catches, can that be sent out to the rest?
I will, if there is a issue, I will call an emergency meeting, either of the SFRPC or of the, is it our officers or steering committee or whatever it's called?
Mr. Chair, if I may quickly.
Yes, sir.
The executive committee does not include Mayor Ross on the roster any longer, although emotionally he may still be there. Legally he is not. But
okay, well, let me
I've been thrown off better committees.
Ask if Commissioner Furr will accept the motion to send it to the executive committee and all past presidents currently still serving on the SFRPC. Would you accept that as a friendly amendment, Commissioner Furr?
Yes.
I don't recall.
Thank you, Beam.
That, but the seconder accept that as well.
That's so funny.
Yes.
All right. In that case, let me restate the motion, which is to authorize staff and me to approve the contract after it has been worked out and then distributed to the executive committee and all past presidents still serving on the SFRPC They will have 48 hours to review it. If there are any objections, I will call a meeting of the executive committee and the past presidents. If there are no objections, I will then authorize the signing of the contract. That is what the motion is. I was only summarizing it. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, as I just summarized, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any opposition? Show that adopted unanimously. We are now on Roman numeral 5, discussion items. Let's move to the executive director's report. I remind us we have 20 minutes before we move to the special set. Ms. Cosio Carballo, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, board. I'll be brief. I just want to go ahead and refer you to the highlights, the council member highlights that are in 6D. That'll give you a good overview of some of the activities we've been involved in. And I'm very much looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have. It's going to be very helpful as we plan our work plan moving forward. I will mention that the joint meeting for the Treasure Coast is set for Friday, March 18th. And we just received, I just received this morning from Tom where it's going to be. It's going to be in West Palm Beach, just west of the International Airport, accessible by Turnpike and 95 and the Brightline service area. So I'll give you options there. We're working
I like the Boca idea so much better.
I did too, but so we have to go where we have to go, but it should be fine. And then we do have, in fact, we started working on a draft agenda, and we have confirmed that our state resiliency officer, Wes Brooks, will be attending in person. So we're very excited about that. And we're also going to be hearing from representatives of resiliency officers from the region, because there's an effort also for, we have Palm Beach Martin, St. Lucie and Indian River, a learning opportunity to see how we bring them along also, and the planning issues. And part of that conversation will also be discussing issues for a bigger event later in the year. So with that, I am, it's good news and not so good news. The not so good news for me, although very good, I think, for Broward County, is that Mark Cassidy, our economic development planner, is starting work with Broward County today. So we're very happy for him, even though I'd be happier if he were here. But he's a lot happier over there because we have a real difficulty competing with salaries at the counties. We haven't had our dues raised in 26 years. And, when a young professional gets a $20,000 raise, you can't really blame him for wanting to go take care of his family and also for new opportunities. So I do hope that will be one of the conversations that we will have this year. The good news, I also want to recognize Christina Miskus. I've known Christina Miskus for a long time. Anyway, she's our senior planner. I rely on her heavily, all of us do. She really helps keep the planning effort going. And she has received a promotion to principal planner. So that is very well deserved. I'm very excited about that. Along those lines, we are looking for employees interested in an economic development planner. Also, we need an additional resiliency planner, transportation mobility resiliency planner. And I'm also interested in finding a deputy director, good planning director. So there we go. That's my update. Why are you looking at me like that? She's like, why is she looking for so many people? But anyway, I could use a deputy director to help move things along and train them up. Okay.
Right. Ms. Cosio Carballo, again, as I think the staff is aware, unfortunately, your sell-by date is approaching. I believe you are in drop.
That's really harsh. That's really hard.
Can I ask when your anticipated date of departure is?
Well, I'm not going to be really far. I'm only 4 blocks away, but October 23rd, 2023, last day of October 2023, I am in drop. Okay. And again, I am looking for a good deputy director And to get that going and started again. You know, what happens too, though, is when I go and I look at people that I know here in the region that would be a good deputy director, a lot of them make more money than I do. So it's just a challenge. I'm not moaning, but it is a challenge. If you, you know, if you're aware of someone that has good planning background, economic development background, resiliency background, I would be very interested in speaking with them. So
Thank
that's
you.
my side day.
By the way, we are all going to, at some point, about a year and a half from now, be very sad when you do leave us. But the reason I brought this up is
No, I
that
appreciate it.
really clarifies why we need a deputy director, whether or not the deputy director ultimately gets promoted to the position, or whether we bring in somebody else and the deputy director can provide continuity. It would be important to have that position. I thought I saw Commissioner Keone McGee on. Is he?
He was earlier.
I saw him log on. One of the issues that we have discussed is that we do need to increase our dues, which haven't been increased, as Ms. Cosio-Carballo said, in 26 years. I think that once we start doing things, which we'll get to in about 15 minutes, I believe that we will be able to, from Broward County, get an increase in the dues. I am hoping with the help of Senator Garcia, Commissioner McGee, I almost called Representative McGee, and well, I think they're the only two here. That is our third commissioner from Mayor of Miami Gardens present?
No. I don't see
Well,
Councilmember Gilbert today.
Okay, so I'm hoping that we will be able to discuss with our respective commissions getting a moderate increase in the dues from each county. Are there any additional questions for Ms. Cosio-Carballo? Are there any additional questions for Ms. Cosio-Carballo?
Mayor Ziotti, I have a question.
Mayor Ziotti, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. Is this something that positions that we could potentially use corporate searches or headhunters, so to speak?
Well,
the problem is pay, but go ahead, Ms. Cosio-Carballo.
Well, I would say that we are working right now with the American Planning Association, also for Planning Association. We're also using our colleagues to advertise the position. It may come to that, but honestly, it's not my first go-to, because the premium, I have a very talented finance director who came through Robert Half, and the premium that we paid to bring him on was enough to make me run away every time. We have to do that again. We had to pay like a $15,000 premium to hire him. So, I'm sorry, what? 20,000. So, yes, it's not my first go-to choice. I'd rather have the 20,000 to put towards a salary spread out over a year.
Mayor Ziotti, I don't think we'll have a problem finding people. We may have a problem finding people we can afford, but I don't think we'll have a problem finding good people for these positions.
Well,
Are there
that
any?
for all government jobs?
Yes, okay. Mayor Ziotti, did you have, excuse me, hold on. Mayor Ziotti, did you have any additional questions or comments?
No, that was my only comment, just because it's a sooner rather than later. And so this is nothing new that's been, you know, advertised, so to speak. So that's why I was wondering why we were kind of, if we could have another avenue.
I understand. I believe I heard Mayor Bailey. Did I hear Mayor, I'm sorry, not Mayor Bailey, Chair Bailey. I'm in a mayor mood today. Chair Bailey, did you wish to have any comments?
Yeah. Yes,
You're recognized, sir.
very quick.
Recognized.
Hopefully, so the last time we had a process, we were very happy to get a great executive director, but we didn't open it up, and it became somewhat controversial because a lot of people were applying internally. And I just want to make sure that we we do a great job in publicizing it and take a while to make sure that we are allowed the opportunity, because a lot of people are now moving to South Florida and the state is changing greatly. And I just want to make sure that we open up to all the possible applicants who would want to apply. I think we're going to always select the best, but I just want to make sure that it's not well publicized, advertised opening, and we have like a long period to make sure that we can continue to get the best and the brightest.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. At the point in time that we begin to look, again, we're talking about a year and a half. I'm assuming that that it is probably my successor that will be who will be elected in January, 10 months before we choose our new executive director, or before our new executive director takes office. So I'm assuming that will be left to my successor to determine the process, obviously along with the board. Are there any additional questions or comments for the executive directors? If not, let's move on. Pardon me, let's move on to the legal counsel report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Geller. Appreciate that. I just have one quick.
Before you proceed, I do want to say how happy we are to see you fully recovered and back in person. We were all concerned about you, Sam.
I was too. So, but thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Nice to be back. I'm grateful to be back, actually. Thank you. I'm fine. One quick item. In December, the council reviewed the predicate for a Chapter 380 agreement on the Parkland Chrome DRI, the DRI that was pending for the past 15 years, and has basically now reemerged by at least 15 years.
Honestly, that was probably Mayor Udin's fault. As mayor, if you left it pending for that long, go ahead, Sam.
Yes, but yes, correct. But your professional staff and others have been working diligently to finalize the agreement. It's a provision in state law, which you approved on the record, which is a section 380.032 Florida statutes agreement, which basically sets the tone for how you review a DRI based on the law that existed before all of your time here on the council many years ago. The applicant has been coordinating with us, along with the Department of Economic Opportunity and Miami-Dade County and professional staff here, along with Bob Cambrick, who is our outside specialist in that regard. Just want to let the record reflect that the council authorized in December that should we reach agreement in that 380.032 agreement, that it would be signable by the chair, signable by the executive director to be able to implement the process. We're not at that point just yet. We're still debating certain issues with regard to relationships between Miami-Dade County and FDOE in Tallahassee, which are not yet finalized as we speak. But the base document is basically done with some minor exceptions. So I know that Isabel has some commentary I'd like to follow, Mr. Chair.
Isabel, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. So what Sam is talking about is the Parkland DRI that's been laying dormant in South Dade for large residential development outside of the urban development boundary. That is a DRI, and as such is entitled to go through the DRI process. Since, and I think it's a good idea. The DRI process is a good vehicle for getting information. I will remind everyone that the DRI process is not about affirming or declining a proposal. It is about identifying the impacts of the proposal and mitigating the impacts. What are the mitigating things that you have to do? So we are required to have this process, but since we're required to have this process after all the rules were revoked, this conversation we're having with the applicant, Miami-Dade County, the Department of Economic Opportunity, and the council is simply delay the framework for what are the rules we agree we're going to work with. And that's moving along. I would expect that it will be resolved quickly. In the meantime, staff is getting ready to start having an application agreement, because basically we're treating this as a new DRI. It's very, very old. So, and what you do with that is that we will pull together our agency representatives from the different state agencies and have a conversation about the DRI. And I'm happy to give you presentation on the DRI process, for those of you who may not remember them, because it was so long ago. Or maybe I'll ask Councilmember Corradino to do that, Mayor Corradino, because he's the expert.
It's all you.
So that's it. So it's all moving along, and we're just, again, ready to finalize the agreement and move forward.
Ms. Cosio Carballo, I'm a little, is the Parkland DRI, did I just inflate the two, or is the Parkland DRI actually in Miami and not the same Parkland that Mayor Udine is formerly mayor of?
I think it
That
just
is
talks
correct.
about Parkland.
Yeah, no, this Parkland is in South Dade outside the urban development boundary.
I understand it's just everybody wants to be called Parkland because
That's right. Because they
Right,
like
then they
having
get to hang out and go skeet shooting with me.
Trap shooting, not ski. Difference center versus side to side. Okay, one of the, just for those more recent members, we used to have the DRI process used to mean something, and the regional planning councils used to have actual real authority, and that was eliminated. I forget whether that was by Governor Bush. I think it was by Governor Scott. Was it Governor Scott that did that, I believe, Sam?
I think it was Scott.
I think it was
Scott, yes. Governor Scott.
So that's what is giving us a little confusion, that we are still required to do something where our power and authority has been kind of taken away, so that now, instead of having the ability to reject or having our approval required, now we are just giving comments, and that's the part of the confusing part, because again, we're dealing with an old DRI under the prior law.
Well, in the
So
development.
are there any questions?
If I could share.
Go ahead.
So our role in the development of regional impact review process is not to approve or deny. It's simply to identify the impacts of the project. Simply, I say simply, identify the impacts of the project and then the mitigating measures. So, and interestingly enough, in the DRI process, since the applicant has requested it, to my knowledge, none of our authority has changed there. It's still the same process.
Right. And just for reference, you may remember that Bob Cambrick appeared at the meeting. He made some comments, gave you some insight as to what that process would entail by providing for a Chapter 380 agreement. 380 still exists. The difference, as discussed by Senator Geller, is that the council no longer has what's called appellate rights for DRIs that no longer exist. And so,
There you go.
the appellate right was that the council, the applicant, and the local government agency could appeal a decision to create a development order to the governor and cabinet, also known as the Florida Land and Water Adjudicatory Commission.
Which I have appeared in front of.
Yes, which really is so have I, which is on behalf of the council, but that was in years past, but that is the governor and cabinet sitting in their separate legal capacity, which was changed by statute during the Scott administration, no longer providing this council with the appellate right, but the attendant legal obligations and responsibilities were never changed, just the appellate right. So when you speak of denuding those rights, they were changed by that legislation.
This is Mayor Cordino. Has the review started?
You're recognized, sir.
No,
No.
Okay, so we're waiting.
you're on the list. You will be on the list to be contacted.
Yes. All right. And the agreement, which is provided for by statute, sets the framework, the four corners to be able to, how you're going to review the application, as described by Isabel. We're inches away from a document, but there are some parameters that need to yet be responded to in the context of who's involved with that process.
And it's not our decision.
Miami-Dade County, FPO, Tallahassee, and others.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions or comments first about the Parkland DRI? If not, are there any additional questions or comments about Attorney Goring's legal report? If not, Sam, as I said, again, we are thrilled to see you back and healthy, and thank you for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, very much.
It is now 11:13. I don't think we're going to be able to get to council member reports before the 11:15 time certain. So let me bring up the 11:15 time certain, which is describe this council planning conversation. Let me first generally say that those of you who have been on the Planning Council for the last 5 years, as I have heard me repeatedly say that with much of our authority taken away, I regard myself, and I think most of us regard ourselves as too busy to attend continued meetings if all we're going to do is hear occasional reports from people who come in and talk to us, because those of us in elective office hear those reports all the time and don't need to go to another meeting. I believe, however, that the South Florida Regional Planning Council still has a very vital and important role to play. And I believe that that role is in fact encompassed in our title, which is regional planning. And accordingly, what I have asked that we should begin doing some regional planning, which we've done some of already, and I don't mean to say we haven't done any, but what I would like to see us is serve as a convening authority on very large issues and convene large groups. Now, I'd have this discussion with Isabel a couple of years ago, and I think we were well on the way to doing that when something called COVID came along and obviously prevented any large meetings. But I think that we need to have a discussion about what we can and should do. If you'll turn to page 4 of your expanded agenda, your packet.
Yes, agenda item 3.
Yes, agenda item Roman numeral 3, which on my packet is page 4. We'll talk about the background of what the interlocal agreement was to create the SFRPC as a regional planning and coordinating agency. Now, I think a lot of that is still important. And again, I think that even though a lot of our powers have been taken away, I think that the SFRPC remains an important group. What I have asked is for us to, and we will probably only get one done during my chairmanship, but what I have asked us to consider is to try, at least initially, to have one major regional planning conference, let's say every 8 months, hoping at some point in time we'll be able to get up to 2 a year, although probably we will not be able to do that until we get additional resources and additional staff. Through conversations with between me, Ms. Cosio-Carballo, and Mr. Gorin, we've come up with 3 potential items and an additional 3 items that I think are extremely important, but that we are contemplating saving for either a meeting of a joint SFRPC and Treasure Coast meeting, and or as chair of the CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy meeting, we put together a large group of leaders here in South Florida, and we are hoping to do some items with them. Let me quickly run through the 6 items that we had come up with. And I will tell you how we have arbitrarily and capriciously divided them. And then I'm going to ask the Planning Council to determine if there are any other topics that we should bring up, and additionally try and determine which of these should be the first item that we would look at. Working with staff, it appears that our first regional conference, I don't think we can do it over the summer. I don't think we can fully prepare for one by June. So we're looking at probably end of September, maybe first week of October for our first regional conference. Let me begin by mentioning the 3 items that did not make this short list, but that I think are extremely important. I am not sure that local governments can influence those as much as the 3 items that remained on the list, but maybe we can. The first item is the issue of senior affordability. The fastest growing group of homeless, fastest growing cohort of those that are homeless are seniors, because we have a lot of people that moved down here in Florida when they were, in their early 60s. They never thought they'd live till their late 80s or 90s, and they have spent their assets. Senior costs are rising faster than the general CPI because of costs for healthcare. Related to this, which we will get to later, is the impending condo legislation. People have avoided paying for maintenance. They've voted to waive their required reserves because I've been told, I'm 74 years old and worry about 10 years from now. Well, the 10 years has now come and they have not put money aside. So the whole issue of senior affordability, I think, is a critical issue affecting us. Closely related to that is the issue of a retirement crisis. There are very few of us, but I think Sam Gorin and I may be the only 2 that are old enough to remember the 60s and 70s when there were concerns about, and commercials about seniors eating dog food or similar things, because seniors were the poorest segment of the population. Because of increases in Social Security, because of pensions, because of a lot of other things, that ended, and seniors in general, with a lot of exceptions, but in general, were relatively affluent. Well, the problem is there is the traditional 3-legged stool of retirement. You have private pensions, you have Social Security, and you have individual savings. Private pensions are largely a thing of the past. They're mostly available to a very few Fortune 500 companies, to governments, and to unions. And I've had a lot of people complain to me, oh, it's unfair that the only people that have pensions are government workers' unions. And their solution has been to eliminate them for government workers and unions. And I think if they have it backwards, I agree with them, it's unfair. I think we need to look towards trying to get people to have private pensions again. If you look at 401ks and IRAs, which people now think of as a replacement for pensions, they were never intended to be that way. They were intended as a supplement, and they just don't pay enough to replace the pensions. And unfortunately, if you look at the data on that, you will find that the overwhelming majority of people either have no pension at all, no 401k or other dedicated retirement savings. And I believe that the median is somewhere around 100 or 120,000, which, using the 4% rule, which some people are saying it's 3.5% today, which is how much you can take out each year, you'll find that there's just no money there. And finally, Social Security, as more and more people have gone to the gig economy, they have been thrilled that they're getting larger paychecks because they're not having Social Security deducted. But people aren't realizing that Social Security, your payments out are based on your payments in over a 35-year period. And I am worried that many people either will not have Social Security or what they will get will be a pittance. And that's assuming that that the federal government is able to fix Social Security so that it's able to continue to pay 100% of the amount it's scheduled to, as opposed to, I believe the number is somewhere around 3/4. So that's the second issue, retirement crisis, pensions, lack thereof, the effect of the gig economy. A third issue, which is also related, is the issue of globalism, salaries, and pensions. As we have, in fact, through globalism, been helping the rest of the world grow their income, many of us think that it has not actually been helping the average American worker, whose salaries have not been going up commensurate with costs because of the reason to try and go wherever is the cheapest. So these are three items, but they did not make they may be discussed either at a joint SFRPC or Treasurer Coast RPC meeting, or they may be discussed with the SEDS committee. The three items that we are talking about having are, as you see in front of you, condo legislation, affordable housing, TOD, and the property insurance crisis. Let me add that one of the big issues that has always come up is water. But because we have done so much on water and there are so many people doing things on water, I am expecting that we will need to do water again, but it would be my preference not to do that at our first large convening authority, simply because there are so many other people working on that. Let me briefly go over these three, and then I'm going to throw it open for discussion. One of the issues is the impending condo legislation. We are all familiar. I'm sorry. Okay. I think we are all familiar with the collapse of the Champlain Towers. There is a great deal of attention on this. There are three bills working their way through the legislature. I strongly suspect that one in the House and one in the Senate, which will be combined into one bill, will pass. As a result of this, you're going to probably see, and again, there's still disagreements in the bills, but you will probably see substantial increases in cost to live in condominiums. Older condominiums will, right now, only Dade and Broward have the 40-year recertification requirement. What the bill that has passed through most committees in the Senate would take that to 30 years if you're not coastal, and 20 years if you're within 3 miles of the coast. Additionally, current law requires 10-year recertifications. They would keep that at 10 years if you're not coastal, but reduce it to 7 years if you are. They are probably going to make it either more difficult or impossible to waive your statutory reserves. Insurance companies and mortgage companies have both indicated that they are not going to write insurance or mortgages on older condominiums unless they have had structural engineers review them and give them a clean bill of health. When you look at all of these items, you're going to see that living in condominiums is going to get substantially more expensive, and many of the older condominiums are going to be torn down because if you have deferred maintenance in them, the cost of repairs may well exceed the value of the building itself. The land still has substantial value, but the building itself may have little to no value. The second item is affordable housing, and there's been a lot of discussion on that. Unfortunately, a lot of people have adopted a policy that they want affordable housing, but they don't want any additional density. There are three items that deal with housing. You can have affordability, you can have no sprawl, A lot of people want the same thing. They want housing to be affordable. They don't want sprawl, and they want it to be low density. And you cannot have all three. I don't know the Dade County numbers, but in Broward County, we are averaging 14,000 people a year over our long-term average moving into Broward. That houses down to give or take 7,000 or 8,000 housing units. As both a senator and a commissioner, there's a lot of laws I can change, but not the law of supply and demand. And I know if we build more housing units than people are moving, then that should at least mitigate the upward prices. We are building less housing units than people moving in. The law of supply and demand will mitigate more, will require more increases. I believe that the solution to this is transit-oriented development and increasing development along the transit corridors, because if we can't build further north or south because they're fully developed, and east and west, if you build east or west, you get your feet wet. There's only one area left, and that's up. I think we need to protect the neighborhoods, but I think there needs to be a robust discussion on affordable housing. The last topic listed here is the insurance crisis. A number of insurance companies appear to be becoming insolvent. Prices are rising at a rate which is unsustainable. People are frequently paying more in insurance than they are in their mortgage. And despite that, you have substantial insurance rate increases coming. Some of the suggestions are to decrease coverage, which I think is a bad idea, but there are things that can be done to mitigate this at state level, possibly at local level, and at federal level. And if we combine our three counties, we should have substantial clout at the state level and possibly at the federal. So these are the 6 topics. Our recommendation is our first project be on one of the 3 listed. At this point in time, I would like to throw it open for conversation. First, if there are additional subject areas that you would like to see either for our first meeting, our first general session as a convening authority. It's my hope we can have 500 people at a convention center to be here to try and bring the who's who, the local government leaders, the business leaders, the state leaders, the experts, etc. I'm hoping we can do this all in a one-day meeting. And then secondly, what other topics we'd like to see in the future. Let me now throw it open and ask for comments and suggestions. Mayor Udine, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Senator. I think that list is a good list to chew on and to start with. I think you hit most of the major topics. The one thing I also think if we're going to do, and it doesn't need to be in the first meeting that they do or the first event that they have, but I would like to see all of the 3 economic development councils, or Monroe, Miami-Dade, Broward. I'd love to see Palm Beach get involved with this too if we did something on a regional basis, to talk about how we can be more cooperative so that we're not poaching different clients from within the 3 regions. Maybe bring them in for a presentation and also on how we can go make joint bids like we did with the Amazon HQ2 to come in as a region to bid on some of the bigger corporate reloads that are out there. But again, it doesn't need to be the ones you suggested, I believe, are a higher priority, but this is just something that I think we should put on the back burner.
Mayor Udine, the issue you raised is something that I also raised. We decided it didn't hit the top 3, but I agree with you. This is an important issue. And again, as the regional convening authority, the regional planning council, I believe that's important. Our problem, again, is because Palm Beach is a member of the Treasure Coast, we would have to do this if we're including Palm Beach as a joint SFRPC Treasure Coast RPC. And while Dade, Broward, Palm Beach have very significant issues that are similar, once you're getting up to Martin and St. Lucie counties and Indian River County, they're not necessarily the same issues, but I agree. And I've just noted that. Are there other additional discussions? Are there any other additional suggestions?
Senator Geller, Goldberg's here. Non-mayor.
Gary?
Affordable housing, transit-oriented development, why are they tied together?
I believe that one of the solutions, but not the only one, to affordable housing is transit-oriented development. So the way this is written, it's affordable housing and transit-oriented development, but not affordable housing only transit-oriented development. There are many other things that can be done, but on a lot of them, they require substantial money, additional money from the cities, counties. Some people, I am not personally a supporter of, the mandatory inclusion in every project of affordable housing. Some people think that is one of the solutions. So I do wish to be clear that TOD is not the only solution to affordable housing, but it is one, and that's why they're listed that way.
Is it that we would only talk about TOD in the reference to affordable housing? Because TOD on its own is a massive, regional effort.
We would not talk about TOD only about affordable, let me rephrase that. We would not talk about affordable housing only in reference to TOD, but TOD, when we're discussing it, one of the biggest benefits is the affordability. Obviously, you also have the environmental benefits, because if you're building TOD, you should be getting cars off the road by either being available for mass transit, or hopefully, if you're doing this with mixed use, letting people walk and bike to it. I think that we can include TOD more than just affordable housing, but I think about, since this would primarily be an affordable housing workshop, I don't know that there'd be a lot of additional issues on TOD, although certainly they'd be mentioned. That answer your question, or do you have follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. One of the other issues that we have discussed was an overall regional transit. Again, that has to be, because we're including Palm Beach, it has to be a joint SFRPC and Treasure Coast RPC meeting. And, it is I think transit, again, is one of the topics that we at the SFRPC have had meeting after meeting after meeting on. And right now, I don't know how much more we're going to be able to get done on that until we resolve the issue of the New River. And I don't think that's going to be resolved at any point in the near future. Commissioner Furr, I hope I answered that. Oh, Commissioner Furr, you're recognized, sir.
Thanks. I think there's still room to be talking about transit, and a lot of it, actually. The SFRPC has had a history with the Clean Cities Coalition, and is probably way ahead of everybody, most of this. What Broward County is going to be having to do, and I think all the other counties as well, through SEPTEC, which is the MPO for Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade. I don't know why they go in. But there's room there with the, I think for the SFRPC to be finding a niche on this, and actually a paid niche, because through the surtax, of trying to figure out, what kind of, and I know there's lots of overlap here between FDOT, the MPOs, CEFTEC. Everybody's kind of working on it together. But there's a niche there to try to figure out, how do you connect these counties, and in what ways, and with between charging stations, all these kind of things. And looking at, do we want, I know Miami-Dade's trying to figure out, like, what are we putting up all the way up 27th Avenue up to, none of us know, should we be putting light rail or, buses, or I heard an interesting idea the other day of going underneath all the power lines, because there's actually connections there. You actually have a way to actually, because it's hard to go, but all the, at least most of the cities I hear, they don't want to have a dedicated lane for just because it's already crowded. So they're looking, where else can you do it? You can go down the center, because you have to go up, and then that's too expensive. But they're talking about going underneath the power lines, because there's connections all over the place. Not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. But I do think we have a niche here that, I think we should try to find what that is. And through the surtax, this is one of those ways where I think that the SFRPC could be hired to help with the planning on the surtax, and that makes sense to me. There's a lot of money there. You're talking about in the end, almost $20 billion over 30 years. And a lot of it is, when we put that all together, there's a master plan there, but it's not one that doesn't constantly have to be rethought. And I know the oversight committee for the surtax is asking to convene once a year, because we know there's going to be new ideas coming. We know there's going to be new thought patterns, new technology. We had at the Clean Cities meeting this last week. The idea of, if you have an evacuation here, and suddenly we all have electric cars, where does that power come from? How the hell are we getting out of here? And yeah, oops is right. But the Clean Cities was talking about how to have mobile batteries that, these
Mobile
big
power stations, yes. You can actually put it along the evacuation route.
Right, and it was like, interesting idea. I didn't know these big giant batteries could travel. And, but those kind of things need to be thought out. So I think there's a niche here. The two things I think that aren't being, have to do with transportation and water. Those two, all the water issues, I don't know who, because those cross boundaries in ways that other things don't. And so I think we should keep our eyes on those two things, because those are the ones that really are going to dictate how we live and our quality of life for years and years. I think if we keep our eyes on those two things, we'll probably be in good shape.
Thank you, Commissioner Burr. Let me make a couple of comments. First of all, please don't give away the Broward County transit surtax money to the Tri-County area. That is something that, we need to be a little concerned about. Having said that, I agree transit is an important issue. I agree water is an important issue. I think those are the two issues that we have spent more time on than anything else at the SFRPC. And if we're going to be, again, acting as a convening authority for a large group, I'd like it, at least in the first one, to be something other than those. Remember, however, I think that, we're not going to just concentrate on one large convening group. And I will be following up on your suggestion. And Sam, I can't talk to him about this. Maybe we can convene a board meeting. Right.
We can always call our own sunshine meeting.
Yeah, we'll convene an executive board meeting where we can discuss what we can do in the meantime on transit and water. But I would prefer that that not be the one big, large group that we're going to have, just because I can't think of a meeting we've had that we haven't spent time on water. And it cannot be the only topic we're discussing. But agreed, it's important, and we can work on that in the meantime. Are there other questions or comments? If not, let me ask.
Let me add one, and I think Isabel's about to.
No, you go first.
The only other one I think is emergency management. That has to be thought of regionally as well. When I think Irma came through and it was going to be coming right up from the bottom of the state all the way to the top, we were all we didn't quite know where to send everybody. And that's there needs to be coordination there. That this is a coordinating group.
Right.
But I'm not sure how that would get done.
Commissioner, I believe that this is a very important item that we haven't spent meeting after meeting after meeting on. So I agree with you that this is something that, needs to be elevated and that we should spend more time talking about this.
And we're very well positioned to do that because we run the local emergency planning committee. We do a lot of emergency planning. Mayor Coldiron would like to speak, Senator.
Chair Geller, if I might just.
Yes, Mayor Coldiron.
If we jumped into that arena, we would have to invite all of our emergency management directors, because I believe that they have really good, robust meetings that they currently attend that we might not know about.
That's true.
So I don't want to take their time away if it's not necessary.
We can have an
What I would
update.
recommend is that we wait until the middle of hurricane season to do this, and then invite all of them, because I'm sure they'll have nothing else to do at that time.
Well, I think they're still unwinding from COVID. And
I understand.
that next H season is coming on quicker than we like.
I understand. We will, but I agree with Commissioner Furr that this is an important item, but you made a very good point, Mayor Coldiron, and we need to check. And Ms. Costio, if you or staff could reach out to the emergency managers and just find out, where they are and whether or not convening. And again, if we're going to have Palm Beach, it would have to be a joint SFRPC Treasure Coast RPC meeting, and see if that would be a good topic for our next joint SFRPC Treasure Coast RPC meeting.
Okay.
Not the one coming up on the 18th. But one after that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, who's speaking? Is that Mayor Ross? Who is it?
My name is Luck. I just wanted to have the opportunity to introduce myself for the record. I'm just attending remotely. My name is Luckman Luck. I'm actually the representative for CFO Petronas, Department of Financial Services. And I know I'm taking note of a lot of the discussions, and I'll be reporting that up the chain. So I just want to let you know I'm on my line.
Okay, please tell Jimmy that we're thrilled that you're here. And, I think that, CFO Petronas has been doing a good job, and I'm pleased to see you here and regard Jimmy as a friend. I've known him since he was a state rep. So thank you, Mr. Watt, for your comments. And Isabel, I see you're texting me, but was there someone else you wanted me to go on?
It was for, no, you spoke with Councilmember Coldiron. So I'm like the person behind the screen, trying to connect. So I just wanted to mention, council members, if you look at the news articles that we included, they touch on a lot of the things we just talked about. So it'll provide you additional information about the insurance issue, affordable housing, There's also an article about Turkey Point and injection wells and some concerns that Monroe County has about that. And so again, it's just provided for your information. We try to keep you current with articles that we think are relevant to you.
Right. And by the way, attached to your packet is also what a lot of the other RPCs have been doing. You may want to take a look at that. And at the next meeting, I will ask if anybody has any additional ideas on these other items that you would like to see the SFRPC working. So if there are no additional, I'll give one more chance for any additional. I'm then going to go back and ask which of these three we should be have at our first meeting. But before I do that, are there any additional comments, any additional suggestions for what we should be dealing with? If not, Commissioner Burr, I will be again looking at both transit and water.
Mirziati?
It's Mirziati, you're recognized.
I'm sorry, I just have one last comment that I seem to bring up at every meeting that I attend, no matter what it is. I just want to make sure that we're the South Florida Regional Planning Council and not the East Coast and not the west side of town, not the east side of town, but all inclusive. Because sometimes those that are kind of in the middle of the land kind of get lost in the shuffle. So I don't want it to turn into something that it's, the East Coast because, the tourism and the larger properties as opposed to the west side of town that may be a little older or even maybe a little newer, but the ones in the middle are the ones that kind of get lost in the shuffle, whether it is transit or whether it is building or affordable housing or whatever the case is, that we are looking at everything overall and not just one section versus another section, that we are truly all inclusive, because I'm that little engine that could and will. So that's my, my duty here to make sure that does happen.
Thank you, Mirziati. And let me say the three that we're discussing, the insurance crisis, affordable housing, and the effective condo legislation. I know that North Lauderdale has a lot of very old condominiums in it. So all three of these would absolutely be highly applicable to your city. So I'd like to see some discussion. I think that any of the three of these are critical. I kind of am thinking that while the insurance crisis is critical, I'm not as convinced that the local governments can change that. I know state and federal can. So I would kind of recommend, subject to your discussion, that we focus either on the issue of the condo legislation, structural issues, potential impact and redevelopment, or the affordable housing element, which would include but not be limited to transit-oriented development. And I'd like discussion if we're going to go with one of those two, and we're going to have a 9 to 5 meeting where we're hoping for 500 or 800 people at a convention center, where we would try and get 100 or 200 local elected officials. Remember, 32 cities in Broward, 31 plus Seminoles, plus county commission. You're looking at 170 local elected officials just in Broward. And when you add in Dade and Monroe counties, we're talking about getting 150 local elected officials there, hopefully for the right issue, is not out of the question. Getting the experts there, getting the private sector there, trying to make a real difference here. I think either of those two topics is something that should be seriously discussed. I'd like to hear between condo legislation, structural issues, potential effective redevelopment on the one hand, and affordable housing including but not limited to transit-oriented development on the other. Which of those two you would recommend for an initial convening conference?
Chair Geller? If I
Yes,
could just-
who's that? There's the Audi.
No, it's Isabel. It's just a comment. The affordable housing issue is so important and it is so big. As you know, the Florida Housing Coalition every year has multi-day conferences on this. So I love the issue, but I would ask that we do somehow try to focus in on some aspect of it, if possible, that you would want to discuss. It doesn't have to be just one, it could be multiple. But again, it's such a big issue between the funding, the NIMBYism, all of the different issues that it's very hard, I think, to do anything in a 9-hour period that would be different than what's been done before. So it's just an idea.
That is a good point. We probably would want to, we don't need 3 or 4 hours of hearing, gee, we have an affordable housing crisis. Because when I go to many of these conferences, they all seem to spend half the time explaining that there's an affordable housing crisis. And I think we can do that in the first 5 minutes by saying, yes, we know there's an affordable housing crisis. Please don't tell us there is. We all agree.
Right.
How are we going to take concrete steps to fix that? Which, again, we might want to deal with the senior issue. We may wish to deal with the transit-oriented development. We may need to deal with NIMBY and just say, we need to understand if we want affordability, we must build more density. Sprawl is bad for the environment. Density is good for the environment. But my question is, I understand you're saying that this has been discussed a lot. Well, again, there will be new condo legislation. I'd like to hear other discussions as to whether the initial 9-hour conference should be on affordable housing or the condo issues. If nobody's going to volunteer, Mayor Ross, what's your thought?
I appreciate that. But at this time, I'm going to pass and just listen.
Okay. Senator Garcia, do you have any feeling? I'll take that as a no, Senator.
Actually, Senator.
Between affordable housing and condo legislation and the condo issue, which do you think we should have as our first convening group?
Councilmember Furr.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here again. Only because I don't think either one of those are gonna attract enough, to be honest. I mean, there's lots of conferences on this. I don't see either one of them being able to move the needle like I'd like to. I'm not sure, but I am.
There's no conferences on water.
I know. But I am thinking of one that might, and I know Greg might want to comment on this, but there is a regional discussion happening right now dealing with solid waste, which we have not touched on, which is, all of us, all 3 counties are trying to figure out how they can work with each other.
That's a good idea.
In terms of, it doesn't make sense for one county to be building a giant recycling, then one building an incinerator, or one, or each one of us doing that, when we can kind of combine that. And this is a topic that I don't think has been exhausted. But the part that I think each county wants to figure out is, can you use those resources that are recycled so that you can begin to attract manufacturers, entrepreneurs, innovators that can use, because we're going to have a ton of recycled material. And now we're going to have to figure out what to do with it. And the question is, from each county, how is each one situated or in line? What can they bring to the table where they can help? Or do we as a region try to sell this stuff together? Because if you have a lot of it combined, you have economies of scale. This could be, I know we haven't touched on this subject before, but
It's interesting.
it is coming fast and furious to Broward County. Actually, to all of them. Because I know Miami-Dade's running into some issues with their landfill and their incinerator. We've already got 2 or 3 hour waits at our incinerators, which is backing up. The reason you're not getting all your garbage picked up the right day, that's why. And why are they picking it up the next day? That's why. Yeah, and not to mention shortages of trucking and stuff. But this is a big issue. And now Palm Beach has said they don't want to be taking all of our garbage. Up in the northern part of Florida, they're saying, we don't want your landfill stuff. We don't want your biosolids. So all of us, it's a major issue. This may be, something we could deal with. Just throwing that out. And you would have a conference there that a lot of people would attend. You would have more than you could, and a whole day's worth of stuff.
Trash talking.
For you to on trash talking.
Commissioner Furr, I will tell you, I wish you'd brought this up a little earlier, but when I was asking for it.
It's a great idea.
However, I agree with you and I disagree with you. I am convinced that we would have a massive conference on either affordable housing or condo legislation. But I agree with you that solid waste is also one that we could fill the room with solid waste. Now, let me rephrase that. So
be a little thinky if you do that. But.
Yeah, so let me broaden the discussion to, instead of just affordable housing and condo legislation, to make it affordable housing, condo legislation, or solid waste. Let me call on our immediate past chair. Mario, do you have any comment between those three?
Yes, a couple of things. So I really like that you said, like, let's make sure that it's not a lot of presentation about the problem, but we move quickly to the solution, because I want to make sure it's like action oriented and solution based. There's a lot of conferences. Of the three, I would go with first. The reason why, because I really haven't seen a conference on that. I think there's a lot of conferences on affordable housing, but I think ours could be completely different if it's solely solution based, because I haven't really seen that. I've seen people talk about the problem, but not really offering solution. But I do love Commissioner Furr's idea, because I just haven't seen that. And so maybe I'm just not moving in those circles, but and it's very important for South Florida. So.
Okay. Let me ask you a question first, and then I will call on Mayor Ross. Isabel, if we're dealing with solid waste, obviously Palm Beach is a very important part of that, because I know we're dealing with them. So does this have to be a joint SFRPC Treasure Coast RPC meeting? Because as you will recall, Isabel, we had discussed that not the November 18th, excuse me, I'm sorry, not the March 18th meeting, but the one after that, we were also talking about trying to convene several hundred people for a joint regional one.
Correct. And so March 18th is our joint meeting, and part of that conversation is identifying a topic. Topics.
Well, they're big on they're concerned with our biosolids.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big issue.
Meeting.
So my recommendation.
And that goes all the way to the river.
Okay, what I think we should discuss doing is actually having two of these. One would be the joint. Isabel, do you have a tentative date for the next joint SFRPC Treasure Coast RPC meeting?
It's in October. I also, Councilmember Coldiron I'm going to speak.
Okay, I know I have to call Mayor Ross, then Mayor
Oh, yes,
Coldiron.
okay.
But
October, it's scheduled for October.
Okay, so that, all right, October. So first Mayor Ross, then Mayor Coldiron.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Ross,
I'll
direct.
defer to Mayor Coldiron.
Okay. Mayor Coldiron, you're recognized, ma'am.
Always a mayor.
So, yeah, first of all, I'm simply a commissioner again, and
Commissioner
Mayor Pro
Coldiron,
Tem
you're
Craig
recognized.
Cates, I was gonna say, Mayor Pro Tem Craig Cates is on the call, and next year he might have a point with this. And I'm, yes, I would personally, you know, coming from Monroe County, our issues with workforce housing and affordable housing are so much more unique than they are in the rest of the region that you'd be having a difficult time getting people in Monroe County excited to come to a workshop on affordable housing simply because of us not having the building permits left to build any more workforce housing. So selfishly from Monroe, we would probably prefer one of these other topics. And the one that I know hurts us the most right now is our insurance crisis that we're having. So, and I know we've already pushed that off the table, but it is one of the three. So I then would go to what Commissioner Furr is recommending, which is the solid waste, because that is something that truly affects us here in Monroe County as well. So from my point of view, I would prefer it being either insurance or solid waste. And with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you. I think what we are looking at right now are actually picking two topics. One for the large convening SFRPC one, and a second one for a joint Treasure Coast / South Florida RPC one. So, you know, we're actually talking about two that probably will only be about a month apart. So, Mayor Ross, did you have any comments, sir?
I do at this point, and I was careful not to bring anything up because I am chair of the solid waste working group. And I did not think it would be prudent because everyone would say, oh, that's your one and only issue and that's what you control. And the truth of the matter is.
One and only issue, except for water.
I'm thrilled to have the vice chair, which is Commissioner Beam Fur, who brought it up. And that's what you have vice chairs for. I have got to say, and with all due respect to the issue on affordable housing, we've heard it ad nauseum. And with all due respect to the condo issue, it's because of what happened. It doesn't apply to everyone. We know what the solution is. We've already taken steps in the legislature to address it. And so that isn't going to bring in the people. I think for the joint task force, if you will, the joint meeting with Treasure Coast, obviously trash. That's going to help not only Monroe, which has the issue, but Dade has the issue. I contacted Mayor Levine, is it Levine Cava or Cava Levine?
Levine
Daniela. And I'm still waiting for her to get back to me regarding that, but we both met and talked about that. And then candidly, I know that Palm Beach has, and because I've toured it, so has Beam, a wonderful solutions, if you will. And we're taking it a little further by looking at all the different places and products that are out there at this time with the private companies that we have within the Tri-County area. The insurance issue I like. I honestly do, because it does apply to everyone. The difficulty with that, unless we get state legislators or unless we get the insurance industry involved, it's not going to be solution oriented, because there is insurance to be had. The difficulty is it's not affordable. And so the only one who can do that and help us would be the insurance industry or the legislature. So I think unless we have those two, that's not a worthy item, or at least not for the joint meeting. It may be for the single meeting. That's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Let me quickly comment, because we're running out of time. Let me quickly comment that we could get the insurance industry to try, or I mean, I know all of them, I can bring them to here, but what I'm hearing is a developing consensus that perhaps we should have an affordable housing in the SFRPC and the joint Treasure Coast SFRPC be solid waste. Let me call on Vice Mayor, or is it Vice Mayor or Mayor Pro Tem Greg Cates?
Thank you very much, Senator.
What is your title, sir? Are you Vice Mayor or Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Greg Cates, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to comment also, like Michelle Koldar, our Commissioner, and Mayor Ross, that solid waste is so very important, especially as we talk about increasing density and bringing even more people in there. We already have a huge problem with waste, and Monroe County is so dependent on what Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties do, because we ship all our waste out of the Keys. So we would love to be a part of that discussion for sure, because we're so dependent on the other counties, which has a huge problem there. And they might get to a point that they don't want to take any Monroe County solid waste because they already have so much themselves. So I think it's something for the future that really has to be discussed. So I think that's very important. And of course, insurance is very important. Hope you could bring, some people down here that we could have that discussion also. Thank you.
Okay, here is my recommendation based on what I've heard. We will hold off picking a topic until we meet with the Treasure Coast RPC. Our recommendation to them will be that at our joint meeting, we discuss solid waste. That would also be probably an all-day meeting, could only be 5 or 6 hours, but I'm going to ask for it to be an all-day meeting. And if they agree, we will do that, and then we will have the SFRPC one, a convening group beyond affordable housing. If Treasure Coast does not agree to solid waste, but they prefer affordable housing, then the SFRPC instead will be on solid waste. But the recommendation would be, because I think we need Palm Beach for the solid waste, the recommendation would be to have them do that. Additionally, at smaller meetings that we can have, I will try and deal with insurance crises, transit, and possibly water. I don't know, we have the bandwidth to do all of those right now. Does this sound acceptable to everybody? I think it's what I've heard consensus for. Is there anybody who disagrees with that?
Can I be the one that disagrees? Can I be the one that disagrees?
Of course, I'm used to your disagreeing with me, Mayor Ross.
I appreciate that.
He is my mayor. I live in Cooper City, about 15 houses or maybe 20 away from Mayor Ross.
I agree with you so far as the joint meeting and the trash. Again, affordable housing, I think, should be replaced with the insurance. I recognize the smaller meetings would address it, but with the important people that you're able to get, I don't want to wait on that, because important people, like you say, that can be invited, I think is very timely for Monroe County, and candidly for Dade and Broward as well. We're all hurting.
Well, let me ask a question, Mayor Ross. I'm going to throw this open to the group. But let's assume that we will be doing solid waste in the joint one, because we will if Treasure Coast agrees. If Broward has our own SFRPC one, would you prefer collectively that this be on affordable housing or on insurance? Because of the time, I think we've all debated this. I'm just going to ask by vote, only those people that are able to vote. I'm going to ask first for a vote on affordable housing, then on insurance, and whichever gets more votes is what we'll do, unless anybody objects to that procedure. Not seeing anybody object, and Isabel, I'll need your help in counting. If you believe that we are better off having it.
We lost you.
I'm
Senator,
sorry?
we can't hear you.
Can you?
What happened? I have no
Not
idea.
here?
Oh, now you're back.
Now you're back.
There was a bleep.
Sorry. So Isabel, I'll need your help in counting, and I'm going, again, remember, first will be affordable housing, then insurance. If you believe that we should have, again, this is contingent on the Treasure Coast agreeing to a joint SFRPC, Treasure Coast and solid waste. Otherwise, we'll be doing solid waste at SFRPC.
Right. Chair Giller, I would ask Kathy to.
Those that are in favor of having the SFRPC topic be on affordable housing, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Chair Giller, we'll have Kathy call a roll real quick. How's that?
Call the roll, please.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Remember,
Bailey?
only voting members.
Bailey?
Yes.
Which one?
For affordable housing?
Or insurance?
No, just.
It's waste first, insurance second.
Okay. So let's assume waste is first. We're only voting on insurance versus affordable housing. And you were saying insurance?
Yes.
Okay, please continue the roll in that fashion.
Kate's?
Insurance.
Cold Iron?
Insurance.
Corradino?
Affordable housing.
Fur?
Insurance.
Garcia? Goldberg?
Housing.
Kaufman?
Affordable housing.
Leonard?
You had to leave.
Ross?
Insurance.
Udine?
He may have left as well.
Ciotti? Housing. Geller?
Since it's 5-4, I'm going to vote for housing to make it a tie. And then let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find which I can get better speakers on. And whichever I can get better speakers on is the one I'm going to do. Unless anybody objects to that.
No.
We agree?
Yes.
Speakers with solutions.
Yeah.
Right. I am not interested in hearing about the problems. We all know the problems. I want to hear solutions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mayor Ross.
No, it wasn't me, it was Mario.
Mario, okay. Mr.
Yes.
Bailey, you recognize her.
Just one quick question. Our last meeting that we had with the Treasure Coast, we had a very robust conversation regarding water. And we said we will follow up and have a solution-oriented meeting. I understand that if that's not the pleasure of the body, but is there any way could we, I guess, formally say that we're not going to, because that was our last meeting, we said we were going to come back together. And so, or should we just alert them like, hey, that's no longer the direction that we're going? So, because I think.
Let me ask Isabel, I have not heard in her conversations with Tom Lanahan that water has been one of the topics discussed. Isabel, can you
Well,
bring it?
we're happy, as per our discussion with Tom Lanahan, yourself, the chair of Treasure Coast, myself, the first topic is going to be sort of a follow-up to the November discussion we had with water. So yes, there will be a conversation about the water that's a follow-up from our November.
That's on the March 18th meeting.
Correct.
Right. We're
Is
talking,
this not
Mario,
the
we were
same
talking
topic?
about the October joint meeting.
No,
Thank you for clarification.
you're welcome.
All right. It is now, I try and end meetings by noon. This was a very important conversation we're having. We still have a lot on the agenda. I would recommend that since we've already lost so many members and a lot of us have things to do, I'd recommend, unless there's anything urgent, that we continue the rest of the agenda to the next meeting. Isabel or Sam, can we do that?
That's fine. We have no more action items. We're through all the action items.
To answer the chair's question, answer is yes. If you by motion simply segue those pending items, do not require legal action today, can be segued to the next regular meeting of the SFRPC by motion.
Okay, my recommendation would be to ask for the motion that Sam just made and follow that immediately by a motion to adjourn since it's over at 12:20.
So moved by Mayor Ross.
Mayor Ross moves to postpone the remainder of the agenda to the next meeting, seconded by Mario Bailey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show that adopted unanimously. Mayor Ziotti moves to adjourn, seconded by Mayor Ross. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Goodbye.
We are- Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
By the way, that's how we do it in the legislature. We just
Works for me.
volunteers, we volunteer you. Bye.
Works for me.
Your office. Absolutely.
Then I can volunteer.
No worries. Also,
Thank you.
Analysis.